Picture this. You wake up naked on cold stone. Your limbs ache. You try to move, but your wrists are pinned, not by iron, but by arms other bodies, pressed against you, equally limp, equally trembling. The stench hits you next, iron and rot. Human waste, and something sweeter beneath it, like perfume, soured by heat and blood. You hear water dripping slowly. You hear humming. A woman's voice, gentle and tuneless, rising above the scuttling of rats. She is above you. Her face is beautiful, ageless, pale as candle wax. She does not blink. Her hands hold a blade. You want to scream, but your mouth is stuffed with linen. You do not yet know this place is a room for dying. You do not yet know your blood will be used to wash her skin. But you will, and you are not the first. Before we journey into these forgotten tales of survival and suffering, if you enjoy uncovering the hidden truths of history, please consider liking this video and hitting that subscribe button for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. To understand Elizabeth Bathory, we must begin not with the monster, but with the child. She is born in August of the year 1560 in the Kingdom of Hungary into one of the most powerful noble families in Central Europe. The Bathory name commands respect and fear. Her uncle is the voivode of Transylvania. Her cousin will become the King of Poland. Her family's bloodline is as pure as their reputation is corrupt. They hold land, armies, and secrets. Elizabeth grows up in the shadow of her castle's high stone walls, surrounded by wealth and cruelty. Her father owns hundreds of servants. Her mother punishes them often, sometimes for sport. Beatings are commonplace. At 5 years old, Elizabeth watches a servant girl stripped and smeared with honey, left outside for the insects. The girl does not cry. Elizabeth does not look away. Her education is advanced. She speaks Latin, German, Hungarian. She is taught to read scripture and family law. But she is also taught control. Nobility must command not just peasants, but fear. She learns the rhythms of torture as other children learn nursery rhymes. Her first fits of rage are met not with correction, but quiet approval. Violence in this house is not punished, it is practiced. By the time she is 13, she is betrothed to Ferenc Nadezhdy, a powerful nobleman known as the Black Knight of Hungary. He is older, war-hardened, and vicious. Their marriage unites two dynasties. As a wedding gift, Ferenc gives her Chaktice Castle, nestled in the Little Carpathians. It will one day become infamous, but not yet. At 14, Elizabeth gives birth to a child illegitimate. The father, likely a servant, disappears. The baby is taken away. No one speaks of it again. She marries at 15. Her new husband is away often, fighting the Ottomans. When he is home, he teaches her new methods of cruelty. How to insert oiled paper between a girl's toes and light it. How to lace needles under fingernails. He boasts of these things. She listens, learns. In the eyes of the court, she is brilliant, poised, devout. To the peasants, she is untouchable. They bow, they obey. And when they vanish, no one asks why. But even as Elizabeth matures into a countess feared and revered across the kingdom, a darker hunger grows beneath her skin. Not just for power, not just for pain, but for blood. Elizabeth is now in her late 20s. Ferenc is away nearly always, leaving her alone with her staff and her thoughts. The castle sits high above the village, its towers veiled in mountain fog, unreachable without invitation. The surrounding peasants dare not look up at it for too long. Inside, Elizabeth experiments. It begins with slaps, then switches, then clamps, needles, heated irons. Her handmaidens are instructed to assist. First, they restrain the girls. Later, they hold knives. Some resist, but most obey, not out of sadism, but fear. Elizabeth punishes insubordination as she punishes defiance with fire, mutilation, or exposure to winter's breath. Girls begin to disappear. Peasant daughters sent to learn courtly manners are never seen again. When their families ask questions, guards respond with boots and fists. The local clergy are paid in gold and silence. The law bends. Chactisse becomes a site of slow death. Victims are brought in under the guise of employment. Many are 13 or 14. Some are younger. They are starved, stripped, shaved, locked in cellars with floors slick from what came before. The air smells of copper and mould. Some scratch at the walls until their fingernails tear free. Some go mad before they bleed. You see it. You are there again. Your wrists are tied to a wooden frame. You cannot move. She circles you with the deliberation of an artist. Her dress rustles softly. She selects a blade no longer than a sewing needle. She speaks gently, her voice almost maternal. Then the skin on your thigh is peeled back like fruit rind, slow and exact. You try not to scream. You fail, and she smiles. The blood is collected in basins, not to spill, but to use. According to testimonies taken later, Elizabeth begins bathing in it. Not at first. At first, it is dab-smearing youthful flesh with a peasant's final breath. Then, as her obsession deepens, full immersions, warm, thick, clinging, she believes the blood of virgins will preserve her youth. Her mirrors lie, her mind fractures. Meanwhile, the system continues. Guards retrieve girls from villages under threat of military reprisal. Servants learn to clean faster, drain deeper, scream less. Elizabeth builds a torture chamber in the castle's lower level, racks, iron cages, wooden tubs with inward-facing nails. Each contraption has a name. Each is used. No one stops her. Why would they? The nobility is above justice. The peasantry is disposable. The church fears her. The courts protect her. When Ferenc dies in 1604, Elizabeth no longer hides her urges. She creates a school for noble daughters, promising refinement and instruction. In truth, it is a fresh supply. The disappearances grow frequent enough to draw whispers, not from her peers, but from those who empty her chamber pots, wash her linens, carry away the pieces of what she leaves behind. Even these whispers are too quiet. For years, the blood continues to run. The girls do not die quickly. Some are kept for days, weeks. There are accounts of lips sewn shut, flesh flayed and salted, eyes burned with hot needles. Some are forced to eat the flesh of others. There is no logic in the pain, only ritual, power for its own sake. This is not madness, it is method. Elizabeth keeps ledgers. She marks each name, each death. Some pages are torn, others are smeared. One servant girl would later testify that she saw over 600 names written in Elizabeth's hand. But we must understand that she did not act alone. The castle staff, mostly women, assist her. Anna Darvulia, an older woman known locally as a witch, becomes her confidant and enabler. It is Anna who teaches her certain rites. It is Anna who encourages the blood bathing. After Anna dies, Elizabeth becomes more erratic, but never stops. Two other women, Ilona Jo and Dorothea Sentes, along with a manservant named Fitchko, help restrain and kill. They are not innocent, but they are not equal to Elizabeth's will. Each act of violence is hers to command. Each death reinforces her belief that her body can remain untouched by time if it is fed enough youth. The contradictions are grotesque. Outside the castle, Elizabeth donates to churches. She builds schools. She funds scholarships for orphans. She receives guests with elegance and charm. Nobles toast her name. Musicians write verses for her beauty. Inside, she harvests children. The mind fractures under such duality. The body either adapts or dies. Some girls resist. One is said to have bit Elizabeth's hand so hard her knuckle split. The girl's mouth is filled with coals. Another tries to leap from the tower. She succeeds. Her body is left where it lands as a warning. Others try to run. Few make it beyond the forest. Fewer still reach help. Most are caught, dragged back, and made examples of. One girl's feet are punctured with nails, so she cannot flee again. Another is tied naked in the snow and doused with water until she freezes solid. Still, they find small ways to survive. A glance shared, a stolen crust of bread, a whispered prayer in the dark, a lullaby sung between cracks in the stone. But no escape. Not yet. To see how this nightmare finally unravelled, we must look beyond the castle to a rising tide of rumour that even Elizabeth could not silence. But something shifts in the winter of 1609. Not in Elizabeth, in those who watch her. The rumours are no longer whispers. They are reports. Letters sent to court, to clergy, to King Matthias himself. Too many girls have vanished. Too many noble families whisper of daughters sent for refinement who never return. A pattern takes shape. A line is drawn from missing children to a single tower on a Carpathian ridge. And Elizabeth does not hide. She becomes bolder, more reckless. She tortures by daylight. She orders beatings in the open. She hires fresh girls from noble houses, no longer content with peasant flesh. She believes herself invincible. She is wrong. King Matthias cannot ignore her any longer, not because of morality, but because of debt. Elizabeth owes him money-vast sums lent to support her estate after Ferentz's death. To seize her lands and wealth, he must prove her guilty. Suddenly, her crimes matter. He appoints György Thurzo, the Palatine of Hungary, to investigate. Thurzo is family, a cousin. But his loyalty is not to blood, it is to the king. He begins with interviews, not just with peasants, but former servants, clerics, and minor nobles. What he uncovers is damning. Testimony after testimony. Some say they saw blood-soaked floors. Others speak of screams, of girls chained by the ankles, of bones buried behind stables and under kitchens. One servant claims she helped burn dozens of corpses in the castle's ovens. Another swears she saw Elizabeth bite chunks of flesh from a girl's shoulder, then laugh as she spit them into the fire. The testimonies pile high. Over 300 witnesses. Still, Elizabeth remains untouchable. She is a countess, noble, educated, connected. It would take more than gossip to arrest her. So Thurzo waits. Then, on the night of December 29th, 1610, he enters Chakti's castle with soldiers. What he finds confirms every fear. The scene is not silent, it is active. One girl lies dead on the floor, still warm. 2 others bleed from open wounds, their eyes vacant. Another is slumped in a corner, barely breathing. The stench of blood and excrement chokes the air. Elizabeth is calm, dressed in black. She denies nothing. She is arrested that night. Her accomplices Ilona, Dorothea, Fixquare taken with her. They confess under torture. They describe everything. The torture, the mutilations, the baths, the ledgers. The court is horrified. And yet, Elizabeth is never tried. She is a Bathory. To put her on public trial would shame the entire nobility. The solution is silence. In January 1611, her accomplices are executed. Ilona and Dorothea have their fingers torn off with hot pincers before being burned alive. Fitchko is beheaded, his body thrown into a ditch. Elizabeth, however, is sentenced not to death, but to disappearance. She is walled inside a room in Chaktisay Castle. The windows are sealed with stone. A small slit is left for food. No light, no voice, only herself. She lives like this for 4 years. No record of her thoughts remains. No letters, no visitors. She dies in August 1614, alone, buried in secret. And yet the question remains, did she do this for so long? The answer lies in the system. Elizabeth was not a rogue killer. She was a noblewoman, operating with impunity inside a society built on hierarchy and silence. Her status protected her. Her education made her persuasive. Her wealth bought obedience. The church, the courts, the nobility had a hand in shielding her. Her crimes were an extension of the feudal structure. Peasants as property, servants as tools, women as currency. Her violence was not a violation of the system, but an exploitation of it. Even her helpers were victims, bound by fear, trained in obedience, trapped in a castle where complicity meant survival and resistance meant death. And those who died? They were nameless. Daughters of farmers, sisters of shepherds, children with no voice, no title, no defense. Their bodies were burned, buried, forgotten. But the system did not die with Elizabeth. It simply adapted. For centuries, Chaktis Castle remained. Visitors came. Stories grew. The legend of the Blood Countess became myth. A vampire, a monster, a woman who bathed in blood. But myth obscures the truth. Elizabeth Bathory was not supernatural. She was human, educated, powerful, capable of love, cruelty, brilliance, and horror. A woman forged by violence and empowered by an empire that rewarded silence. And we must ask ourselves, many more like her have gone unseen? How many systems still protect predators behind wealth and reputation? The past is not gone. It breathes. In courtrooms, in prisons, in closed doors and sealed records. Elizabeth Bathory's victims may never be named, but their suffering remains etched into the very stones of her castle and into history itself. What followed her sentencing was not justice, it was erasure. Elizabeth is sealed in a room no larger than a servant's pantry. The entrance is bricked shut. There is no window, only a slit in the stone, just wide enough to pass a plate of food and a jug of water. Chaktisay Castle becomes her tomb long before her death. She does not scream. At first, she waits. She believes someone will come. She believes the king will rescind his order, or the nobles will intervene. She is, after all, a Bathory, a widow, a patroness of the church. She gave money to the poor. She paid priests and physicians. She remembers their names. But no one comes. Inside the chamber, she begins to unravel. There is no mirror, but she imagines her reflection. She touches her face constantly, checking for lines, for sag, for age. The skin beneath her fingers grows dry, flaking. She scratches at it until it bleeds, then rubs the blood into her cheeks. You are in the dark with her now. You feel the stone grow colder. You smell rot-not death, but mildew and the slow decay of isolation. You hear her muttering, sometimes to herself, sometimes to the ghosts she believes walk the walls of her prison. She names them: Ilona, Dorothea, Anna. She swears they visit her in dreams, whispering through cracks in the stone. She sees girls' faces in the darkness, sees them blinking, smiling, unblinking, always watching. She eats, but rarely. The food rots faster than her appetite. She sleeps in fragments. She speaks to the stones, traces symbols into the dust, recites Latin prayers and ancient charms. Sometimes she sings lullabies she once heard peasant mothers hum to their daughters before the girls were taken away. The body breaks down, but slower than the mind. In her second year, her teeth begin to fall out. Infection sets into her gums. Her nails blacken. Her hair becomes thin, patchy. She wraps it around her fingers until it pulls free. She no longer feels beautiful, only remembered. She scratches tally marks into the stone with a sliver of broken plate. Hundreds, then thousands, then she loses count. She weeps, then forgets why. Some nights she laughs until she coughs blood. Other nights she is silent for days, crouched in a corner, staring into a blackness deeper than sleep. But she does not beg. She never asks for mercy. Not once. The guards, who bring her food, come less frequently. Some days they slide in the plate and hear her singing. Other days they hear nothing. The silence unnerves them. By the end of her third year, she refuses to eat altogether, not out of protest, but because she has begun to believe she no longer needs to. She is transcending, she tells them, becoming something more, something eternal. The blood she once bathed in remains inside her. She is preserved. She will outlive them all. In her fourth year, she collapses near the wall. She calls for her jailer. For the first time, she pleads. "My hands are cold," she says. He does not answer. When he returns the next day, she is still, curled like a child, eyes open. Elizabeth Bathory dies on August 21st, 1614. There is no funeral. Her burial site is hidden. The body is interred in an unmarked grave, its location deliberately obscured. Some say she was buried in the church crypt at Chahtis. Others claim her family moved the body to avoid desecration. No one knows for certain. In death, she became legend. But we must ask, what did her death change? Little. No structural reforms followed. No systemic investigation into the complicity of nobility or clergy. Her name was scrubbed from some records, but never entirely. Her wealth was confiscated. Her castles divided, but her crimes were repackaged as myth-convenient, supernatural, easier to digest. The Blood Countess, the Vampire of Hungary. Her atrocities were sensationalized, turned into folklore, obscuring the true horror that her violence was not isolated but enabled. Generations of noble privilege had created her. Generations of silence allowed her to thrive. And in that silence, we recognize echoes of today. Systems still protect predators when they wear the right clothes, speak the right language, and hold the right power. Institutions resist accountability. Victims without names are forgotten. Violence becomes inheritance, hidden beneath the surface of civilization. We may not see castles anymore, but the walls still stand. Invisible now, but strong as ever. Others would come to write her story, but not for truth. Writers, historians, novelists, poets, they took Elizabeth Bathory's life and repainted it in strokes of horror and fantasy. They made her immortal, not as a war criminal or a noble predator, but as a vampire, a sadist, a woman gone mad from vanity. They said she drank blood, slept in coffins, consorted with witches and demons. They called her the female Dracula. But the truth is more devastating, because it is human, because she needed no supernatural cause, no Gothic inspiration to justify what she did. She was not possessed. She was permitted. And that is the deeper horror. The earliest records after her death already diverge. Some chroniclers portray her as the embodiment of female monstrosity. Others cast doubt on the charges. A revisionist wave in the 20th century suggested that she had been framed by political enemies eager to seize her land, that the witnesses were tortured, that no bodies were ever recovered, that her trial was a conspiracy. But these theories, though seductive, cannot erase the volume of testimony or the consistency of the accounts across class and time. 300 witnesses, dozens of named accomplices, patterns of abuse too specific to be invented, and, even if some details were exaggerated, the structure that allowed her to operate remained real. Her status, her protection, her impunity. It is tempting to mythologize Elizabeth Bathory because it provides distance. It allows us to believe that she was a singular aberration, a fluke of madness in an otherwise just world. But history teaches otherwise. There have always been Bathorys. There still are. Not in castles, perhaps, but in boardrooms, in churches, in orphanages, in schools, in political office. People who use systems of power to exploit the vulnerable, enabled by silence, by fear, and by the bureaucratic mechanisms that prefer denial over disruption. You know this. You have seen it. The names change, the methods evolve, but the core remains. Unchecked power wrapped in the cloak of respectability. Elizabeth's story also reveals something darker in how we process trauma. We turn victims into numbers, allegations into folklore, pain into spectacle. We make cartoons out of atrocities. Her legacy as a woman is especially complex. For centuries, she was held up as proof of the danger of female authority. Some scholars labelled her unnatural, a cautionary tale of what happens when women hold too much power. They ignored the context, the world that made her, the abuse she likely witnessed, endured, and ultimately reproduced. Her gender did not protect her victims, but it also did not create her violence. It was a tool used and abused by a system that cared more for appearances than lives. Modern parallels are unavoidable. We still see institutions fail to act against known predators because of their wealth, social status, or affiliations. We still see girls and women disbelieved. We still turn away when the truth is too uncomfortable to confront. Elizabeth Bathory's story is not just a window into the past. It is a mirror. It asks you not just to observe, but to reflect, to question who is protected, to ask who still suffers unseen, to consider how many walls still stand around, the powerful, and to recognize that while her body lies rotted and lost to time, the system she thrived in has not yet been buried, until we name the unnamed, until we believe the silenced, until we dismantle the structures that allow cruelty to wear crowns and smile for portraits. We will continue to birth new monsters and bury their victims without headstones. History is not a horror story to be told once and then forgotten. It is a reckoning, one we still owe, one we must not look away from again.